it's Terry Murphy. Today's Monday, and it's Money Mondays with the wonderful and amazing Christina Wise of a Wise Money Method. And today we're going to focus on business plans. Now, this time of the year, which is the fourth quarter, we need to start thinking about next year. You don't wait until next year. You start early. And Christina is a real estate mogul. She's the millionaire coach. She's the creator of several multi-million-dollar companies. Award-winning author of one of my favorite books, Falling for Money. So much better than Falling for Men. Just kidding. It's a romance novel, but this time with your bank account. She's been named one of the 100 most influential real estate leaders, not just women, not just leaders in the real estate industry. Welcome, Miss Christina.
Thank you. Happy to be here again.
We do this every Monday for the Women's Wisdom Network. I think I looked for the hardest words to say all together, Money Mondays and the Women's Wisdom Network. But every Monday, we've been focusing intentionally on helping women become financially secure. And there's a reason for that. I did 437 interviews for the book, Smart Women, Smarter Choices. And the one issue that always came up was security. The sad part of that was, oh, gold digger. Not really. Who wants to marry somebody who is financially an idiot, a moron, somebody who can't manage their money, somebody that's too tight with their money? I mean, you want to live life by design and not by default. So talk to me about what you think we can do that is not just a business plan that we fill out and it goes in a drawer and we never touch it again, but a real business plan. And I know that your program really focuses pretty intensely on that. Talk to me about it.
Yeah, well, first of all, a little apropos the way you started off, how about we fall for money instead of falling for men?
Did I say that out loud? That was my instinct voice.
But I mean, just to talk about that for a second, what if we fell in love with our money before we fell in love with men?
I think we'd be a lot more wealthy. I just know a lot of attorneys wouldn't have my money, but go ahead.
Well, yeah, I mean, just as something, is a fun thing to think about, but to get to progressive times and where we are today, what if we as women, that's what we want we want our first level of security to come from our own potential, our own finances, our own competence in the field of money, so that when we do look for love, it's not tainted by this money thing. Like we've got our own money, we can make our own money, we can manage our own money, we can grow our money, we have confidence there, we have competence there, and we're empowered there. Then that might lend us actually to make better decisions when it comes to, men or a partner, if you will.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I just like the way you kind of accidentally set that up.
Yeah. Well, sorry about that. Not really, because in my interviews, which was women that spanned anything from 25 to 95, having a partner, regardless, that matches your core values. If you're a saver and they're a spender, you're going to have a problem. If you don't follow some kind of a budget, we don't like the word budget, but what does it cost to fund your life? And I'm not talking about Jimmy Choo's. I'm talking about food, shelter, insurances, transportation, fuel, that kind of things that are boring but essential. And part of understanding your business plan is, it's like Siri. You can't say, get me to a restaurant until you tell her where you are. And so talk to us about why business planning can be so successful, especially if we follow a plan like yours.
Well, yeah. So what I do in one of my programs, which is it's really business planning, and then you learn how to implement your business plan from the program. And we do that over 16 weeks, actually. But we really dissect the elements of a business and really look at those, and then create kind of targets or goals, and then create metrics to measure how we're doing in these key areas. And since most of us didn't go to small business school, we don't even understand, like we didn't go to money school because these things don't really exist. We don't understand that there are these underlying fundamentals, these foundational components of money, these foundational components of business, that even though if we're not aware of them, it doesn't matter. So when we're kind of banging our head against the wall that we're not turning out the numbers of our business and we'd like to, 9 out of 10 times it's just lack of knowledge, it's lack of education. So that's what we do in the program, is understand these 12 fundamental pillars of business, and then we start to plan those, create those, develop those, and then create an implementation strategy. But there's some real I'd say just myths or misnomers when it comes to, let's say, business planning. And what I find to be true, especially in the real estate industry, but really across the board in any small business, is a couple things. First of all, we have to, one, understand there's a difference between being a business person and a practitioner. So you can be a doctor who's really great at surgery, but have no clue how to run a business and have no clue how to run finances. But so there are a lot of broke, amazingly talented surgeons out there, that are still paycheck to paycheck and have a lot of money issues, anxieties, and lack of security, and all fill in the blanks. And it's just because we're great at one as a practitioner doesn't mean we know anything about business. And so in the real estate profession, we can do the same thing, that just because we're great at real estate, as far as selling houses and helping buyers and sellers, it doesn't mean we're great at turning that into a business. And that when we move from practitioner, and it doesn't mean sometimes we are a practitioner in our business, but sometimes we need to put on our business hat and we're just a business owner. So we need to separate those two. So that's like the first thing, is really deciding, do I just want to be a practitioner that's making a certain income and that's what I do, or do I want to create a business, in which case there's a business plan. And what happens is that the difference, again, between the practitioner and like the business owner, practitioners are more about goals. And again, our industry is all about set big goals, your big, hairy, audacious goals, your big hags, we've heard, and the different things. And so it's really about, hey, let me set these goals. And 9 times out of 10, we're just pulling them from the sky. And we want to do more than we did last year. So let me put bigger goals on there. And maybe I loosely create, hey, what am I going to do to generate more business to hit these goals? But that's about the gist of it. But that's the difference. A practitioner is about goals. And our industry sets that, like, hey, what are your goals this year? How much money do you want to make? How many closings do you want to have? XYZ. So that's goal setting. And goal setting is not business planning. And that's where it gets fuzzy. Goals might exist inside of a business plan, but they're not a business plan. Business plans are much more complete. They cover a much more areas. And a business plan essentially looks at those key elements of the business, and then really looking at that first. And one of the first things we do as a business owner is, it's more than just next year or this year. It's, what is the vision of my business? Like, ultimately, if I'm winning a business, if this business is a machine that's turning out the level of lifestyle and the level of money that I want it to, what does that look like? So we want a vision. What is the vision of my business? And that's different for everyone, because there's always trade-offs. Maybe one, let's say, top producer has a vision that, hey, I want to do, I want my business to be 5 million GCI, and I want to have 20 people, and I want to have buyer's agents, and I want sellers agents, and I want this, and I have this vision. I'm super excited. And that might be a vision for one. A vision for others, like, hey, I want to be able to make this amount of income. I want to work this many hours. I might have 1 or 2 people work for me as some leverage, but my vision isn't to build this great big team. But the way the industry teaches us is, like, the way to success is to build these big teams, to be doing these different things. And then we start comparing ourselves to what we're supposed to do, versus starting kind of winning into mind. And what does the business look like for me and my lifestyle when it's working really well? So that's the first thing to start with, is, like I said, we want to be a business person. Now we need a business plan. And then we start with vision.
Would you say to me, that's your why? Listen, for all of you out there, it depends on where you are in life. You might be ready to set the world on fire at 20. You might be still like lighting everything at 30, but maybe at 40 or 50, you're finding different values. And those values could be more time with your kids, more time with your grandkids if you're older. And so the only way to do that is to be intentional. And you talked about 12 pillars. I've worked with 4. Talk to me about, you said the different elements of the business. The plan tells you why do I want to do this? Because ultimately you're trading your time, your life, for money, so that you can have your life. And I don't think people think like that, especially in real estate. We're always setting that bar higher and higher and higher. And burnout's a real thing. Would you agree? Think we
Well,
both
yeah,
would.
I mean, most of the people, most of the entrepreneurs and professionals that I talk about are in burnout. And that's when they're finally coming to me, like, what gives? I thought I would be in a different place by now. So we give them the solve for burnout. But as an example, personal example, and again, age had a big thing to do with it, but I was kind of the school that I was taught from, the real estate school, who I was following and my mentors and competition. It was all about building the biggest team possible. And the way to have leverage in life is to build this great big team. And so I started building a big team, and then I created my own brokerage, and then I have 50 people working for me. And it was fun for a little while, but at the end of the day, talk about burnout is all I was doing was managing problems, and everybody else was getting paid and I wasn't getting paid. And it was just a different headache. And I just realized I didn't have freedom and I wasn't cut out for that. And then when I changed that model and said, you know what, I really, from this business, I want to earn this amount of income with the least amount of stress, So that became the question is, how do I create this specific amount of money from a real estate business with the least amount of stress? And that became a question, and I went to solve it. And for me, what I realized is that I actually ended up making more money and having far less stress and headaches when I was one person that had two people working for me or with me.
And okay, so that's another magic trigger number for women, and that is delegation. We find it difficult. I think part of it is the mindset that we have to do it better, bigger, brighter, wider than anyone else by ourselves. And we forget sometimes or don't recall that we've got family and we've got, your immediate family, kids, family, extended families, and you can't do it all. And it's not a sin to get some help with it, but you have to be able to have the funds to do that, so that if you're making $200 or $300 an hour, and sometimes way more, that you can pay somebody $15 an hour to do it for you, because that's their goal, not because they're less than.
Yeah, and again, delegation would sit more in the practitioner role. So, hey, I'm just trying to delegate, get some stuff off my plate, so I have a little bit more time to work on higher dollar activities, higher dollar generating activities. The difference between a business person, delegation is it's you don't even talk about it, like you have to delegate. The difference between that is in business is building a team, and you have to have your players of your team. And so then it's like, okay, to hit these targets, what team members do I need to have to be able to ensure that I'm able to do that? And then it's going about, like, what are the roles? What are the job descriptions? How many people do I need?
Thank you. Job descriptions. So often, especially high I entrepreneurs, the drivers were like, just do it. And then they don't. And then we're like, then you get the headaches. So thank you for that distinction, Christine.
Yeah, and again, that's in business. You have to have roles, and each role has a job description. And yeah, is it a pain in the ass to create these? Maybe, if we're trying to write them from scratch, but everything can be borrowed. Everything's been, there's no need to create the wheel. We can ask, the person 3 seats down and say, hey, do you have a job description I could model off of this type of thing? Or just go online. Like, finding job descriptions, it's pretty easy these days. Back before the internet and different things, it might have been harder. So creating a job description isn't hard. It's just a matter of, hey, I need to take myself out of my practitioner role and the crazy busyness and into my business planning time that I have on my calendar, and I'm just going to knock these things out. Or I'm going to hire somebody to knock it out if I want to do that. But again, then delegation, it's not even something that we think about. It's a must, because you delegate things, you teach people their roles, and then you move things off your plate to that role or that type of thing. So again, we just have to, it's a mindset thing that if I'm a business person, delegation is not an issue. Because
Okay.
it doesn't serve us to not to delegate, right? We can't build the business if we're not getting, moving stuff off our role into somebody else's role, so we can focus on the things that move the needle of the business. So again, it goes back to these different distinctions, and really leverage, which means that for the we can do more with the same amount, basically, that only comes through some type of business creation, and that's creating the machine. So we've looked at, we need to say, are we a business person, number one. Number two is to start with the vision. What is my vision? Not anybody else's vision, but what is my vision? And what a vision really is that when it's working exactly the way I want it to work, ideally, what does it look like? What is that? And that, again, that's going to be very personal. It's going to be different for everyone. So my vision changed from building this big brokerage to, hey, I just want to be able to have something that works like this. And if it's working like this, which is a much smaller team, and it's allowing me to hit these numbers, then great. But so it just depends. The next thing is really why it's so important this time of year is we start with reflection first. So again, it's like taught like, oh, go put bigger goals from last year, not even if people looked at their numbers that even really know what they did, meaning kind of how the business worked out overall. But it's really looking at, especially we're at the end of the year, it starts with, hey, how did I do this year? And what worked, what didn't work? Did I hit my numbers? Did I get close to hit my numbers? Why and why not? So it really requires this thought, this thinking, this time to really be thoughtful about and honest. There's so much hyperbole in the industry. It's easy to inflate the numbers. So just, between you, yourself, and you, me, myself, and I, is what did I really do? What didn't I do? So
what did I want to do that didn't get done? What did I buy that I'm not using?
Yeah, because the only way to get where we want to go is we have to, you said this early on, is we have to know where we're starting from.
So, I'm really glad you brought up the point of reflection. Women particularly don't do that. It's just look ahead, shoulder to the wall, let's go. And yet when you look back is the only way you can correct the course, right? So let's just say you wanted to do X amount of dollars of income and you fell short. Well, then you look at what might have happened. Something you could have controlled, something you didn't control. But more often than not, would you not agree that with business plans, we set up this scenario in the beginning, but we never course correct when something goes haywire? I mean,
that's what the metrics are for. Exactly. So we need to reflect and say, okay, how did I do? And look at that. But and then let's say, okay, that's going to be my starting place. Really, this is where I'm ending. And where I'm ending, let's say, or where I project that I'll end on December 31st. That becomes the new beginning. But if we look at a Google map, Google can't give us a map of where we want to go until Google knows where we're starting from. Now, what Google makes it easy because it automatically now tells us where we're starting from. But if not, we'd have to say, hey, I'm at this address, then it can map. We cannot map anywhere from without a starting place. So that's really important to know, is to reflect and to do just the reflection work, to be really honest. Again, we have to create time and space to do this. And then we're not even looking at that. The next thing about business planning that, again, gets confused with goal setting is the business plan is really about solving problems. The business plan will include some goals, but what we're looking at through that reflection, what you're looking for is so the symptom, for example, let's just say we think, hey, I didn't make enough money this year. Not making enough money is a symptom of a bigger problem. So it's what we want to do is identify 3 to 5 problems that we need to solve that's going to allow us to make more money. So it's getting to the root of the problem, to the root. What is the root problem? And it can be something as simple as discipline. The root problem in my business is I wasn't disciplined to my lead generation, for example.
ooh.
So let's say if discipline, it's not lead gen. We think lead gen is the problem. I didn't generate enough leads. Not enough leads is a symptom of a bigger problem. So we want to get underneath. It's like going underneath. Well, why didn't I generate enough leads? Well, why then is say, well, maybe I'm not disciplined. Well, why wasn't I disciplined? Well, because.
Well, you didn't time block. Well, I didn't time block because, I don't like to sit there for 15 minutes. I mean, So you bring up a good point. If you look at the studies, the same amount of houses are being sold and everybody's like, oh, the market's quiet. No, everybody still needs housing regardless of what's going on. So good for you to point out it's discipline. Well, the discipline usually ties to time management. Well, the time management ties to what you're planning. And I mean, yes,
Yeah,
keep
and
going.
so then,
It's
exactly,
brilliant.
keep going until you really get to the root answer. And it takes time. It takes a lot of time to stare into space. Well, is there, is it just discipline? Is it something else? Is it time? But it's trying to get to that. But then that becomes the problem to solve. The problem to solve is that I'm not disciplined. All right, how do I solve that problem? And then that becomes part of the business plan, is writing into the plan how the method, like the strategy and the tactics for how to solve that problem. Well, part one is I'm going to hire a discipline coach that does nothing but hold me accountable, because I can't hold myself accountable. And I'm going to do that on a bi-weekly thing. And then, I'm going to block that on my calendar. Then there's going to be the action items. I need to find out different coaches. I need to see what I'm saying. So this is part of the business plan, and the action plan. Then we can start to say that's designed around specifically for me to sit my ass in a chair and pick up the phone, because I can't do it on my own.
It's
The difference between just lead gen and then we're throwing dollars at marketing, or we're throwing dollars at these things and trying to solve this thing when it's not a lead gen problem, it's a discipline problem. So that's the next thing, is to really look at, and again, I can't say what those are for you, but it could be, again, it could be a communication thing. Poor communication. And it's not, it's like, poor communication is a symptom of what? That I don't have enough resources of people or something that are actually, I don't have a role that calls people back. I don't have a system. I don't have a structure.
There you go. The key word there for me was system. When we help people block from, you look at the calendar, you said with the end in mind, where do I want to be next December? And then you break it up into quarters, and then you break it up into months, and then you break it into weeks, and then you break it into days. When you do that, you can handle it. And generally, as humans, we can't even think about December of next year when we're not even in December this year, but you could think about January. So I think you're talking about creating new habits. I love it, a James Clear book, Atomic Habits, because it talks about making them so small that you'll do it. Even 5 minutes of like no Facebook, no email, no phone calls to help you figure out what's my number one thing today will move you forward, even if it's just a little bit. Would you not agree?
Yeah, absolutely. And we get down to those things, on like the day-to-day basis, is like, what is going into each day with what's my plan for the day. It's all part of planning as a verb, so that we don't create, like to your point early on, is people create this goal or this business plan and then they never look at it. So it's this noun created, we did the right thing. We created we set our goals for next year. We did this business plan. Versus as a business owner, it's really looking at the business as a whole, not as me, but as the business. And what is the plan for the business to be able to do what I want it to do? And then the plan becomes solving the problems, really. Like what are the structures, the systems, the tools, the people, whatever it is, it's going to allow me to solve those problems. And then the planning becomes a verb. We're always planning. We're planning the week, we're planning the month, we're planning the quarter, whatever the case is, but the planning never stops. A plan is a noun that can be done in 15 minutes if you want to just say you got one done, check the mark. But creating a business plan that's the map for what the planning that we do on a regular basis, then again, it's an instrument, it's a tool, it's something that guides the ship. And we're always referring to it. And then our planning is rests inside the bigger plan that's for the year, for the whole overall,
for the whole vision. So you've got business versus practitioner and reflection. See where you are, see where you want to go. Don't make it a wish list. The business plan is solving problems, which are usually the root problems, not the symptom of the problem. And you've got another step.
Yeah, and then the planning piece, that it never stops. We have to have metrics. And they're milestones and metrics. And then, so part of that would be on our calendar. We already have a preset day at the least at the end of each quarter where we're looking at, okay, what were my metrics for if I was going to solve this problem, which was to discipline. Now I have the discipline that hopefully is generating more leads. The metrics are, hey, I need to generate this many leads or this many clients, month by month, but on, for the quarter. And then that goes back to that beginning place again, is like, how did I end with the quarter? And then, am I on track? Am I off track? If I'm off track, was it because I wasn't disciplined? I didn't solve that problem? Or did the economy change? Like I was highly disciplined or something. So maybe it's like I didn't identify the right problem. Maybe another problem needs to be solved. So it's just understanding that the goal of the business plan is to solve the identifiable problems.
Gotcha.
And it's not just to set bigger goals. Sometimes, sometimes, let's say in a changing economy, for example, while we're getting used to the new norm, kind of the new benchmark, it could be, I don't want to grow at all this year. This year, my goal is to make this amount of money in a changing economy while I figure things out, because maybe my lead generation strategy that worked last year that probably didn't exist because money fell out of the sky.
Yeah.
Maybe it won't work this year. So the thing I like to say is, again, it's kind of built in, grow, bigger numbers than last year. Just set your big, hairy, audacious goal. And at the end of the year, we don't get anywhere close to it because it's just set once and kind of forgotten about it, right?
And like you said, those adjustments are important.
Mhm.
So besides metrics, do you have another step?
Yeah, I mean, that's basically that's it. I mean, there's a lot more. Like in my business planning program, it's 16 weeks. And so it's looking at that. So that's kind of the beginning, is really identify what are these core problems. I call it the 9 whys. Well, why do I have a lead generation problem? Well, discipline. Why do I have a discipline problem? Well, because I'm too tired and I can't fit everything in. Well, why is that the case? And you just keep going down to really find the root of these different pieces, like I said. The next thing then is what we break it up, and we don't have time to go through all the pillars, but it's to understand too that there's usually a big root problem in each of these pillars. One is our vision clear? Do we have clarity on the vision? Number 2 is resources. Most of us are under-resourced. We don't have the money, we don't have the people, we don't have the time currently to be able to grow. So how are we going to grow if we don't have a strategy for more resources, for more this, for more that? So it's looking at resources. Another pillar is marketing. How am I doing with marketing? What is my marketing problem? Like, what is that? Another pillar is sales. So there's the different pillars that we need to look at, and they're all distinct. Marketing's different than sales. Marketing sales is different than team/resources. A big thing is, is the machine. We want the machine to do a lot of operations. What are my SOPs? What is some of the business systems that are consistent and I follow through? And looking at
define SOPs for those that don't.
Just standard operating procedures.
Okay.
What are the kind of the checklist/systems that we train to, or that we hold consistent? Because ultimately, to have the machine, it's a consistency. We want these things to be working consistently. And if we're working these things consistently, which 9 times out of 10 we're not, there is no consistency. It's kind of just solving the crisis in the moment.
Exactly.
It's moving from, it's if the consistency, then the first thing is to get to consistency in these different areas. Now, if that consistency is not turning out the numbers we want, now we need to go like, hey, again, something's not working here. What's the problem in one of these areas? And so the top 6, like I said, the top 6, which are crucial, but the other ones are in operation as well, are going to be marketing. And marketing's branding, marketing. How are you getting out to the world that people know you exist? The second thing is, like I said, sales. Is there how are our conversions? Like, how are we doing with sales? Marketing gives us the sales ups, like how many sales conversations we're in. But then 2 is if we're sitting down a listing appointment and we're losing 3 out of 4, we might have a sales problem, right? Like our just sales skills might be a problem. Well, I can
Exactly.
solve that. I can go to a sales class or something like that. So the third one is team. Is really like what team members do I need to be able to consistently operate the business and hit the numbers we want to hit? And so it might be one person, it might be 5 people, it might be 50 people, just based on your vision. So, but we have to identify, because you can try to do everything alone as a practitioner, but again, as a business person, you can't do it all alone. It's impossible.
How many businesses don't have an accounting service or business, somebody who actually writes the checks for you? Somebody who handles the 941s if that's what you need. That's where I was talking about delegation. You think you can do it. What happens is, and you talk about inconsistency, is you're pulled away because you're reactive versus responsive. And when you're intentional about addressing each pillar each day, I mean, and people I coach, I'm like, okay, what's our pillar for this day? So maybe Mondays are, sphere of influence, and Tuesdays are past clients, and Wednesdays top 50. But if you know that that's your, just like when you were a kid at school, meatloaf Mondays, taco Tuesdays, if you get into that habit, it moves you forward.
Exactly. And that's kind of our routines. And like you said, the habits we want to get into is make sure that our routines and habits are supporting the problems that we've identified. That's really what our day consists of. Is if I have a marketing problem, my daily activity is, how am I generating more leads as a daily activity, is something that's always top of mind, that our business plan is the guide. Another one is money. It's a key one. So it's money, it's looking at the money, it's understanding the money, it's watching the money, it's budgeting. And it's budgeting the money in the sense of, okay, what is my marketing budget? And how am I breaking that down on a month-to-month basis? Because all of these have to be funded.
Oh gosh, that brings up such a good, one of the things that really hurts me, actually, I hate to say breaks my heart, but it really hurts me when I hear one of my clients say, well, I bought this Google ad thing for $500. And I will tell you, you can't spend over $20 without talking to me, number one. Number two, how do you measure that? What are you paying for that's not giving you a return on investment? You talked about, losing listings at your listing presentation. If you're only closing 2 out of 5, it's a script, it's a style, it's a presentation, it's your presentation. I mean, you really do have to you have to work on the business as much as you work in the business. And boy, I'm glad you brought up money, because I think that we throw away so much money that we don't have to.
Well, yes, absolutely. And we're throwing money away a couple different ways. We're throwing money away by, we're not looking at solving our own problems or identifying those. So we're just trying to write a check to solve the problem. And that's hiring people, like hiring outsourced people, like a marketing company to go do the marketing. So we don't want to do that. We just want them to bring that in. And no, like it's more than that. We have to determine what is the fundamental marketing problem, what key area, what are the metrics I need to generate? How would I hold this company accountable to making sure that we're doing this? What is this company going to cost relative to all the concerns of the business? So again, it's a holistic thing that we're planning and looking at. And just go back, that takes time. It might take several days, at least a weekend of designated time to go through all these things to start speccing this out for the new year. It's not something to do in 15 minutes or an hour, and again, we build all this, we build in the business planning clinic, basically, which is the 16 weeks, we break all this down and we create each one of these strategies for all the different pillars. So that then it just becomes, you just open up your plan and everything's really identified as the key action items, what to stay focused on. So it becomes the focus by doing that. But the money is so crucial. So one, we're trying to solve our problems with buying it, and it doesn't work. It's just the marketing company is going to keep your 100 grand and you didn't keep your 100 grand, and you're not going to have a lot to show for it. And then it goes, well, that didn't work. Maybe it's a social media problem. Maybe if I hire a social media person, then that's going to be, well, that didn't work. Maybe I need to do a podcast. Maybe everybody's been talking about a real estate podcast. Maybe it's a podcast that's the magic penny. And we're just going through these things because we're trying to fix the symptom of lead gen versus
Oh.
going down to try to find out what's the root problem.
I just love the way you talk about the symptom. We, and look, we wrote the 1 Minute Entrepreneur. We know that entrepreneurs, just want something to fix it, because they're running around being everything, the chief bottle washer, everything else. It really makes sense to make you understand that there has to be a return on the investment. We have to be able to measure it. Billboards are great, but how do you measure it? Shopping carts, measure it. I mean, what are you doing to penetrate and target the people that give you business? You're right about the leads. So we've got, we talked about marketing, sales, team, and money.
Yeah, so the second thing where money gets lost is that we're not paying attention to it. It's just
Ooh.
a big paycheck. I had 3 big closings this month. I'm rolling in the money. The next month there's no money, and then it's trying to make up. So that's usually the amount of time we're spending with our money in the business. And the business, by looking at the money in the business, it's a narrative. It'll show us what's working and not working. If we look again, if we're reflecting in the money piece, we want to reflect in all these pillars. But if we're reflecting and we need to open our books. Well, how messy are the books? How clean are the books? They're probably pretty messy.
Ooh.
Which we can't solve problems if we don't look at the money, because money tells the truth. It's like stepping on a scale. We can ignore the scale if we don't want to know the truth of our weight, but once we step on the scale doesn't lie. We can bullshit ourselves, but the scale doesn't. We can bullshit ourselves with the money, but if the money's in the books and it's all there, we can't bullshit it. We just have to sit with the truth of what the money says. But the great thing about that is when we can identify where we are, what's the weight today, now I can create a plan to where I want to go. So it's like, this is where my money weight is today. Where do we want to go? But we just have to identify that as the starting place, because ultimately we want to bridge a gap from where we are to where we want to be, but we have to know where to start from and we have to know where we want to go. And, those, and then all these other pieces that I'm talking about is identifying the core root problems, because then the whole business plan is about solving the problems. But the money tells a story. And when we're not looking at the money, I can promise you're overspending, meaning you're keeping less money, and money evaporates because you're not paying attention to, and you're just putting another thing on the credit card in the business and going to the next mastermind or going to this, and this fingers, if I do, crossing our fingers, like maybe this will work, or hey, I just really want to do this. But when we use our books as a narrative, it will tell us where we're weak. It will tell us where we're strong. And now it will help us identify some of these problems we're talking about.
Wow. Well, I know that we can't possibly cover all of them, but in our coming series, because I think, don't you think it'd be really smart of us to continue with business planning for the next couple of weeks? Because we've got SWOT analysis and we've got identifying your pillars. I mean, if you're just, if you don't pay attention to what you really love to do, and you're bifurcating what you don't want to do, you won't do it, and then you don't get the business that you want. I mean, everybody wants to thrive by giving service to one another. And when you do it in a way that's joyful and fun, you're going to do more of it, right? Do you have a closing comment for us on business plans? Do you have anything you want to share?
I'd say one more key pillar that's really crucial is really systems and operations.
Ooh. Oh, I hear you.
We really have to have systems and follow systems. We have to have, that's what creates the consistency. Only systems creates consistency. And again, it's looking at, okay, what systems are weak? What system part of the business plan? If I'm, if these things are breaking down, there's very likely not a system there that supports it, that allows the consistency to happen. So it's identifying like, oh, I keep breaking down in this area. I don't have the system for managing my leads. I don't have a system I don't have a job description that's a system and an accountability system to meet with my team members to make sure that they're producing the results I need them to produce. So again, the systems, and so these are all key pieces of the business. And once we can, like I said, the business planning retreat, to spend a couple of days and identifying this, then from there we can create a plan to solve the problems. Then our job as the business owner is to always be pointed, that becomes our North Star. How well am I doing to solve this problem? Because it's only by virtue of solving the root problems that we're going to grow the company, or the company is going to make more money doing the same amount of work. Period, end of story. But we're not taught that. We're taught to goal set and to just, focus on growth on GCI.
Yeah, to bring us back where we started. Well, Christina, just in case you just tuned in, we have Christina on our Women's Wisdom Network podcast series. It's on Spotify and Apple and Libsyn, because we do this every Monday, and we're going to keep doing it until she says no, because I'm telling you, if you think today was good, all of them are good.
That's like really this podcast, I think, is amazing that anybody listening, start at the beginning with what the conversations you and I've been having, because you're going to pick up so much tactical advice and implemental advice and changed mindset by listening to the series, and start to hear how these all integrate and layer, are part of the same onion, and all this money stuff is really going to start to make sense. And I mean, I have to say, I think these are really good.
Well, if nothing else, I'm going to tell you that it's a great way to mastermind with somebody like Christina. She's an expert. She's built $1 million companies, not once, not twice, 3 or 4 times. She's been featured in USA Today. Well, I bet I haven't. I bet you haven't. So what I'm saying is, when I found being successful is you hang with the people that do it better than you do. And I know that it's systems. I can tell you right now with my own coaching clients, I'm like, okay, where's our profit and loss? They're like, huh? How many are in your CRM? I don't know. How many active leads do you have right now? Let me think. No. This is your business. This is not your hobby. So if you're serious about this, I invite you to tune in. And if you're really serious about this, you need to know that Christina will meet with you for free. 45 minutes for free, a free consult, because she has her wise money method. And if you're serious about this and you discover that you could be totally different financially, I would say career-wise, personally, because when you free yourself up and you're not a slave to making the donuts, your whole attitude changes, your energy changes. She has a program called the Wise Money Method, and you really can learn the details of this. And the reason I'm bringing this to you is because Women's Wisdom Network, our mission statement, our core value is to help women help other women. And yes, if you can help yourself financially, guess what? Your kids are going to do better. You're going to do better. Your family's going to do better. You're more poised to handle anything that the universe hits you with. It's like, is that all you got? Let's just take it on, because Christina will help us do that. So Christina, tell them a little bit more about the program so they know where to jump in.
Yeah, I'd say the best thing is just to set up that call. And like we've said before, is there's always that resistance or that reluctance to like, hey, I don't have my money in order. I don't have my business in order. Things are messy. I don't want to be embarrassed. I don't want to set up a call. And like I've said before, the messier, the better. Just come to the call. Let's chat. I'll give you some instructions, some advice. And, if I think I can help you more than that, I'll let you know. And if not, I promise it's leaving with some nuggets that you can implement right away. And let's just start there. Let's just have a conversation to, there's we've always heard that quote that continue to do what you've always done will continue to get you what you've always got. So if we really want to change things next year, if we want to make more money, if we want to get more time, if we want to make more money and have more time, whatever it is, we can't do what we did last time. We've got to change something. And, so just making the call, even if it feels scary or feels
scary,
do it anyway.
Yeah.
Do what feels scariest.
So again, join us on the Women's Wisdom Network podcast series to pick up more, or rehear this one, which will be up shortly, or go to Women's Wisdom Network Facebook community. We also post on there little tidbits. But at the end of the day, here's the thing. You really do have the power to change. But your why has to be strong enough to go through that uncomfortableness to change things. We're bringing you the tools that can help you achieve life by design, not by default. I'm Terry Murphy with the Women's Wisdom Network and my gift, Christina Wise. Join us again next Monday, because we're going to continue how to build a business plan that rocks for next year. Thanks for joining us.